So very quickly to introduce Luca, who is a researcher here at ICS, at the Instituto de Ciências Sociais da Universidade de Lisboa. And Luca is mainly interested in the connection between populism and collective memory. And he does this in a very comparative way, where he analyzes the presence of communism through content analysis and links this to demand and supply, trying to understand the connection with collective memory and authoritarian past. He has a PhD from the University of Zurich, and before he studied in Brussels and Bologna. And he has published a couple of papers over the last few years. I'll just highlight Populism and Nationalism Revisited, a comparative study of Spanish and the Portuguese New Left, but also an article written with Leah Hein, a new Iberian exceptionalism, comparing the populist right, comparing the populist radical right electorate in Portugal and Spain. And today he will be presenting his new book. You have a book from before as well, right? I'm just seeing from also a book called Populism and Collective Memory, Comparing Fascist Legacies in Western Europe. But he also has a new book coming up in September, right? And you today will essentially present that book as a output, if you want,
with a twist.
With a twist of his other alternative activity that he does as an academic, not only publishing books and papers, but also writing a blog where he does outreach. And so today, what that at least we'll discuss is not only presenting. You will not only present the book, but also associate that into how it does outreach. So it's populism as a form of political action, but also how we can reach other people beyond academia. And the floor is yours, Luca. Thank you so much.
Thank you. I'm going to open the PDF. Is it already sharing?
No.
Share screen. Voila. So, first of all, thank you, Tiago, and thank you, Guya, for the opportunity of being here today to present. As Tiago was saying, today it's a book presentation, but also a more general idea of what does academic outreach mean. So I was preparing this presentation the last days, and I thought, I don't know what's academic outreach. I don't have a definition. We all know what it is, but how can we define it? So what I'm going to talk about today is the fact that in 2015, I created a blog to do academic outreach, and that this year, this blog will become a book. So I want to explain a little bit how can we do academic outreach that then becomes an academic activity, but also reaches a broader audience. So, as I was saying, I started thinking, what is academic outreach? And then I thought about the classic average life of an academic. And I thought, okay, academic outreach is not when we collect or analyze data. No, it's not when we use this data to write a paper, to write a chapter, to write a book. It is not to present our work to a conference and then changing our paper according to the feedback we receive at the conference. It is not applying for grants or funds, which, as you know, can take a lot of time. And it is not dealing with administrative issues, which can also take a long time. It is not mentoring. So what is it? So I thought it's whatever else we do in our academic life. But we still don't know exactly what it is. We just know what it is not. And I put this cartoon here to show that obviously when people demand things and the academics just say, you don't know what you're talking about, and they put themselves in the ivory tower. That is the opposite of academic outrage, is to put yourself higher than all the public and tell them that they don't know, that they don't understand. So this is the opposite of what I think is academic outrage. And then I thought, okay, at least you can say that the goal of academic outreach is to communicate the findings of our research to a broader audience. It is whatever we do when we try to explain to someone who's not our peer, our fellow academic peer, what is it that we've been researching and what conclusions we reached. So how is academic outreach done? There are several ways, several channels. We can go to traditional media and give an interview for television. We can go to the radio and give an interview. We can write an article for a newspaper where we explain our research. We can go also on social media, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, YouTube, which sounds weird in the list of social media, but actually it's considered as social media. Or we can disseminate the results of our research online through blogs, websites, podcasts. And I was reflecting on this. We do a lot of these things, interviews, we tweet, we write articles for blogs, but nobody really teaches us how to do this. And in the presentation I'm giving today, it becomes clear how much work there is behind academic outreach and how much one learns by doing these things. So my hope was today also to share my experience and tell how it has been for me, and listen also to someone else telling me their experiences in case you want to share them. Oh, okay. I don't know what happened. This was not supposed to happen. Okay, well, never mind. So in the white slide that you couldn't see, there is just a picture of how my blog looks like. Because I want to first start with the blog. I created populismobserver.com in 2015 when I was a PhD student in Switzerland, Israel. Why did I do that? Because I was hired at the time as a PhD student, and the scope of the project I was working in was to understand the amount of populism in newspaper articles and party manifestos in 8 European countries from the 70s up to now. And I found it absolutely interesting and fascinating, and I was engaged in writing a code book, forming the coders, analyzing data, going to libraries to collect data, and it was great. But I felt that something was missing. I felt that what really interested me couldn't be captured in my, strictly speaking, academic work. For example, why Berlusconi, Geert Wilders, Boris Johnson, Donald Trump have all crazy hair and are right-wing populists? Why is Gianni Varoufakis fighting Angela Merkel? What do the social movements of 2015 have to say against the Troika? So there were many topics, many issues that I really cared about, and I felt that were connected to the work I was supposed to do, but also went beyond the work that I was, strictly speaking, academically supposed to do. So the other thing is that when you try to publish something in academia, as you very well know, it can take a long time. It can be very frustrating. By the time you have an idea and you write a paper and you present it and then you change it and then you submit it to a journal and it gets rejected an obscene amount of times and then it finally gets published, a couple of months in the best case or a couple of years have passed in the meantime. So I wanted also not only to be able to talk about certain issues because I find them interesting, but also to talk about them now. Not in a year, in 2 years, in 3 years, when the book, when the chapter, when the book, the paper come out. A third reason why I really felt that I needed an outlet like a blog to talk about issues was that as a PhD student, as many of you experienced the first year or two, you read a lot of literature. And I started thinking, okay, by now I've learned a lot and I know who are the authors that I like. I really think that there are cool works out there, but I need a more direct contact with these people. These are not just names written on a paper, these are people. And I started writing them and asking, hey, how does your 2004 paper travel to today's situation? You defined populism 20 years ago. What do you think about Donald Trump and Biden and who's populist, who's not? How can we update what you've been writing to today's conditions? So this was another reason why I started a blog, and I started doing interviews to authors that I found were doing important, interesting research, and I wanted to know more about it. So this is a WordPress statistical page that you can access when you log in your blog. And it's just there to show that in 7 years I managed to publish 115 posts that received approximately 60,000 views. And of these 115 posts, more or less half are interviews, and the other half are the format that was developed later, which is asking researchers to write themselves a short article explaining the results of their research. Another thing I find interesting is that through the various tools available on WordPress, you can see how many people click on a certain link to an academic work. You can see how many people click on the profile of a certain academic scholar, and you gather a lot of interesting information about how much knowledge can be spread and the content of our research can be disseminated. So although I cannot work on my blog as often as I would like, because outreach is not really considered part of our work, although then it is considered part of our work because we're also supposed to do interviews and to do academic outreach. I found that for me, it worked really well, the idea of creating my own outlet for disseminating research that I find interesting. And I can know now that people read this. In a bad month where I don't publish anything, maybe 400, 500 views, but in a month where I publish something interesting, maybe 1,000, 1,500 views. And as I said, I can know who clicks on what, but not who. How many people click on what. And it is a good impression of how much we can do to disseminate the content of our research. What did I learn on the way in these 7 years that I've been having this blog? Well, first of all, as I just said, that we can do a lot. We can really spread the content of research beyond the traditional channels, and this is effective. This works. I've established working relations this way. I've for sure made many people aware of works that they would have not encountered otherwise. And I also found important the lessons I learned via the blog, because I think I learned better how to write also strictly academic stuff. Why? Because once you're forced to write, not for the 10 people in the world who work exactly on your topic, but for the broader public, you're forced to be clear. You're forced to express concepts in a clear and direct manner. And this helps a lot also in your, strictly speaking, academic work. For example, when we apply for funds, when we apply for grants, there will be a jury. But the jury is not composed of 6 people who are mega experts of the topic that you research. They might even not know a thing about the topic you research, but you're still being judged by these people, and they will never give you a grant, they will never give you a fund if they are not understanding why what you do is relevant and what exactly you want to do. Then I think there are also several lessons I learned when it comes to how to do effectively academic outreach. So for example, not every channel is the same. We cannot just send the same content to all the media we can think of. Each media works differently. If I'm doing a TV interview, I'm not going to say the same things that I'm going to write on Twitter, and I'm not going to write the same things that I'm going to write for an article on Google. So linked to this, the second point, audience. Who are we talking to? I think it's very important that when we write something for a broader audience, we have in mind who are we talking to. And sometimes I use the trick to myself, which is, would my parents understand what I'm saying? Would my grandparents understand what I'm saying? If the answer is no, well, probably nobody will understand what I'm saying when I'm trying to reach a broader audience. Of course, if I'm writing a paper for a specialized journal, I can use certain terms and expressions and concepts. But if I'm trying to reach a broader public, I have to have in mind who is the audience of this. Shortness, briefness, I cannot stress this enough. There are exceptions to this. Yes, you might be writing a reportage which has a long format, which needs context and additional information. But more often than not, when doing academic outreach, something that really kills the vibe and makes people read something else about sports and fires and whatnot is that you are taking too much time to make a point. Go to the point, go straight to what you want to say, be clear about that. I cannot stress this enough. When I ask people to write articles for my blog, I always ask them, please try to stay in the limit of 1,500 words. I've published longer pieces, and in my experience, it's more difficult to reach an audience if an article is, let's say, 3,000, 4,000, 5,000 words. It's too long, people get bored, and don't read that. Using links to other material can be very effective also to keep it short. I don't need to have context for everything or adding additional information for everything. When I can, I use links, and these links will bring to additional information and context that people can read. Also this crucial point, simple, straightforward language. If I am using a terminology that nobody understands, what I'm writing will not be understood. So it can happen that I need to use a specific concept. If I'm talking about network analysis, I can talk about network analysis. There is not a better name for it. And yet, if I'm trying to reach a broader audience, I need to explain immediately and very clearly what network analysis is and does. Then in my text, I can keep referring to this concept. But I have to make the reader familiar with this concept first. If the reader keeps reading this thing and not understanding what I'm talking about, at the third time that the reader encounters network analysis without having understood, the reader will say, goodbye, you lost me, I'm not following, I'm reading something else. Last but not least, I find that using examples, concrete examples, can help a lot. But also images and metaphors. So basically, I might be talking about, I don't know, democratic backlash. And I'm writing a whole article about democratic backlash. Fine, you can use the term because it's the term we use. But first I have to explain what democratic backlash is. And then I have to give concrete examples. Because if the reader immediately sees, which is what Jair Bolsonaro is doing in Brazil, what Erdogan is doing in Turkey, what Trump is doing in the US, a concrete example will go a long way keeping the attention of the reader and making the reader understand what I'm talking about. So, after 7 years of having created the blog, I wrote to Routledge, the publishing house, and I told them, hey guys, I produce interviews. What do you think about making a book out of this? And to my great surprise, the reply was, oh, we do know your blog. We love the interviews. Please write a book about it. I thought it was a scam. It was not a scam. They were serious. They really wanted this. I signed the contract a year ago, and the book is coming out in September. It was a very quick business. And the book is composed of 30 interviews to people that I believe are doing cool and interesting research on this topic. There are 3 parts. Each part is composed of 10 interviews. The first part is called "What is populism and what is not?" And I thought it was essential to first give the definition of what we're talking about and the historical context. There are interviews about 19th century populism in the US, for example. There is an interview about how after fascism, populism resurfaced in Latin America. So context. Historical context, understanding that when we talk about populism, we're not just talking about Trump and Boris Johnson and Brexit. We are talking about something that has been there for a very long time, and this is important to contextualize what we're talking about. Another thing that I really loved in this first part of the book are 2 interviews that, if you want, we can call meta interviews, because they are done with 2 researchers, Aurelia Mondon and Matthijs Gordijn, who I think do great research and have been doing this for over a decade. And these 2 interviews I think are particularly interesting, and if you have time to read only 2 interviews, read those. Because they are meta interviews in the sense that they are interviews about how to research about populism. For example, what bias or misconception we should be avoiding, what are the most interesting questions we can ask. Since there has been such a huge literature already, it's very important that we hear from someone who's been doing this for a long time, what are the angles that are interesting and relevant for future research. And the other one is about the populist hype. Mondon explains how populism became a buzzword and everybody talked about populism and made research on populism, but also explains that more often than not, the term has been misused, and what the media were talking about was actually not populism, and how this helped normalize populist radical right actors. Then there is the second part of the book, which is called Causes and Consequences, which starts from the question, why is populism not equally successful everywhere? Why in certain places more than in others? So we look at the factors that can explain the demand for populism. So we talk about polarization, we talk about emotions, anger, we talk about the perception of having lost the social status. We look at the role of the media in making populism thrive. We look at the strategic reaction of mainstream parties vis-a-vis populist ones. And we also talk about political culture and institutions. The third part, called Issues and Topics, was created because during the book I realized, okay, when we talk about populism, we are talking about so many other things. We are talking about an ideology or a way of doing politics that is extremely successful in so many countries. Currently, a third of the population of the world lives in a country where populism is in power, mostly thanks to India, but still Brazil and until recently the US. So in reality, when we talk about populism, we are talking about so many other issues. There is one of my favorite interviews in here with Melanie Schiller, who talks about how popular music can be used to create collective identities. There are interviews about the links between populism and conspiracy theories. There are interviews about how populism enhances the denial of climate change. There is an interview about populism and the COVID-19 pandemic and how populist actors have reacted to it. Again. Okay. I don't know.
Maybe you can stop sharing and just try to share again.
Yeah, I can actually. Okay, because I also have. I also have it in another format. And I think that's the problem. I don't know why, but. Should have checked that. Yeah, that's better. Right. I am. Ah, you're right. Right. So, what is in this book after all? This book is composed, as I said, of 30 interviews with 32 experts, meaning that 2 of them are double interviews with 2 experts. As I said, I'm really proud of the 2 meta interviews that go into how to do research about populism. And what has been extremely hard for me was how to select the experts. I don't know if you're familiar with the topic, but people have been writing on populism increasingly more over the last 10 years. There are thousands and thousands of papers, books, roundtables, everything. Everybody is writing on this, and there are hundreds and hundreds of authors that I could have invited. So my question was, how do I select the authors I want in the book? So first of all, I wanted to mix not only of big names, but of big names and young scholars, in the sense that I was not interested in giving the voice only to 50, 60-year-old white men from the US universities. I wanted also young scholars who do interesting cutting-edge research on populism that I find interesting. Again, considerations about gender and geographical provenance. I didn't just want men or people based in EU or US universities. And the thing that I found particularly interesting to do, and the replies to this question are probably one of the most interesting parts of this book, is that each of the 30 interviews start with a personal question, which is, how did you get interested in this topic? How did you decide to do research on this? And is there any author or work that inspired you and you would recommend? And this gives a more personal dimension to the whole issue and makes us understand once again that scholars and researchers are not just a name on top of a book, on top of a paper, they're people. And what they do is also linked to their own experiences. There are people saying, oh, I was a teenager and I saw on Dutch television that Pim Fortuyn was doing crazy things and revolutionizing the way of doing politics. And that caught my attention, and I started following things. And I kept asking myself, what's different in this guy? Why is he going so much the establishment? What is he trying to do? Why is he so different? I got another reply saying, oh, I was also not interested in politics until all the media started talking about the possibility of Marine Le Pen winning in the presidential elections. And that was a huge storm, and everybody was talking about that. And then I got interested in populism. Ruth Wodak, who's an emeritus professor in Vienna, an amazing researcher and amazing person who does a lot of work on critical discourse analysis, told me her story about how she got to study populism, and I find it very interesting. She said, back in the early 90s, she proposed to the, I don't know, Minister of Education of Austria, a research proposal about anti-Semitism and populist radical right. And the reply to this was, this is not a sexy topic. Nobody wants to hear about this. We will never give you any funds. This is not research that we're interested in promoting and financing. Well, here we are 30 years later. Ruth Wodak has written dozens of articles and books about anti-Semitism and the populist radical right. So I think also it helps giving a perspective to other scholars or people who are not familiar with how these things work, in what it means to do research and what it means to do academic outreach. And here we are, the last part of the presentation, because I've been talking about having a blog of academic outreach that becomes a book, which is also academic outreach. And now I have to do academic outreach about the book. So why doing academic outreach and tweeting about it? So it's inception to the mess. And so first of all, two things. I want to share. The fact that the blog still exists after 7 years is due mainly to the fact that it won 2 outreach awards. Back in 2017, the first one from the University of Zurich, actually from the National Center of Research, which is like the CIES-Iscte, which came with a monetary component, which made it possible for me to pay the subscription to WordPress for the following years, because it costs 100 euros a year. And I was like, I'm doing it, but you know, I'm not going to pay my money to keep this going. And then this award made it possible to make it stable over time and give me a sense that this could make sense. And then in 2020, the Institute of the Ciências Sociais here in Lisbon gave me a second award for that, which also came with a monetary component, which made it possible to proofread all the interviews that compose the book. Which is based on the blog, which is academic outreach. I'm not going into the intricacies of this once again, but I find it really fascinating. So last but not least, now that the book will come out in September, I have to do academic outreach about the book, including presentations like what I'm doing right now. And yes, it can happen that you receive an email saying, hey, why don't you come and present your work, your book? Yes, it does happen. But for the first time, I'm trying to actively promote the result of my academic work, starting with asking, hey, are you interested in having a conversation about this book? And I find it extremely exciting and worth it, because so many other people that maybe not even know about it are super excited about it. And I'm organizing a mini tour of presentations. I will go for 3 days in the Netherlands, 4 in Italy, 2 in Switzerland, and I don't know where else. And the feeling is like being a manager of a rock star. The problem is I am not a rock star and I'm managing myself. And this is something that nobody teaches us. When looking about academic outreach, I have to say I was impressed by the fact that most universities don't train their people for academic outreach. We're supposed to be able to do it. They just tell us, sure, go and do interviews, but they don't form people to do that. With the partial exception of Dutch universities, a bit of UK universities, but in my entire career, nobody ever taught me how to do this, which is also why I think it's interesting to share this experience with you. Another thing I didn't know is that, you know, to reach a broader audience, you can also translate your book. Not necessarily everybody speaks English. So I'm in contact now with Routledge, the section of it that is responsible to sell the rights for translations, trying to have the book translated in Portuguese, Spanish, Italian, French, Turkish, German, and that's another part of what we do that is not really thought about. It just happens somehow, and there are no guidelines. And doing what I'm doing right now made me gain some experience, which is very limited, but I think it was worth sharing. And then obviously, once the book is out, there will be articles for blogs, websites, podcasts, YouTube. And this is yet another part of our time, of our life and work that, I mean, it is definitely part of our work, but it is rarely recognized as such or valued. And it is not taught, it is not transmitted as a skill. It's something new that you have to invent out of nowhere. So I thought that sharing this experience could be interesting for other people. So I'll just leave you here the links to the blog and the Twitter that is linked to the blog in case you want to have a look. And on my side, this is all. Thanks to all the people who didn't go to the beach today and to all those who will look at this in the future. Thank you.
So maybe we can have a discussion, debate, questions from the audience. Let's see if we have people in here. We have Claudia. I'll leave this here because I think for those who. So who wants to start? I don't know if Gloria at home wants to intervene. Oh wait, there's. What?
First. Thank you. I've been following your blog and Twitter for a few years, and it's remarkable. And I look up to your example. I have a question regarding the audience, and if it does require for you to engage with the public, the broader audience, because. For example, I follow your blog, but I tend to belong to this academic sphere. So my question is, if it requires you to engage with the people, not in an academic sense, and how can you evaluate this from that point of view? So not only for example, enhancing your skills and enhancing your work, but also reaching the people as a co-person.
Oh, this is a great question. Thank you. So yeah, obviously the blog I'm managing is in a gray area between fully academic and fully broad public. So obviously I know that many of the things I publish are of interest to an academic community. I don't think, it's in English first of all, so I know that it targets a certain part. But at the same time, so there are parts of the academic community that are not specifically interested in populism and might reach or maybe want to study populism, and this is a starting point for them to know, okay, this has been done, this is the conversation, this is what goes on. In terms of media, it is very helpful because more than once already it happened that someone saw one of these articles or interviews, and from newspapers, from radio, from TV, from blogs, etc., and told me, hey, I've seen that, what about doing something? And this created more interactions. Of course, I do know that having a blog of this type is not something that will reach the housewives, 70-plus-year-old of Portugal, and it is true. But I think it is a first step to break the barrier, because I know many colleagues who are completely uninterested in having any conversation that goes beyond how many papers you've published, in which journals, what is the impact factor. Someone read it, it's not relevant. Someone talks about it, I don't care, as long as you cite it, obviously. And I'm trying to do something, different. And also, I think it gave the possibility to a lot of young scholars to bring their research out there. They also actually then afterwards thanked me because what the article they published or the interview I made got them also interest from other people, etc. So it is in this gray area between, yes, it is academic, but it is not a closed circle, at least I hope, for academics, but it is not for the broad public. This progress. Yeah,
I think Tiago also.
Okay, thank you for your presentation. Very interesting topic. And I was wondering what you think about institutionalization of academic outreach, because nowadays in institutions, for instance, here at ICS-Iscte, it's something that actually counts for your evaluation as a researcher and as a lecturer. So, do you think that's a good thing? Because it's not
wait.
Okay.
last. More? Yeah. Yeah.
So the point is, does this put some pressure? I think it might be something that and it's unequal in terms, or might be unequal in terms of the area you're working on, or if you're working in hot topics where you have many more possibilities for academic outreach, and it's very. And how do you see this specialization? That's the first question. And secondly, although we can argue that it's part of the academic work to do your own marketing, but to what extent this kind of also is incorporation of a kind of a neoliberal ethic to do your own marketing and to make yourself visible, you know, and also as a way to improve your social capital in the community.
Yeah, great points. Thank you.
I think Guya wanted to follow up. From
Yeah,
this,
I
right?
have a very
Yeah.
close point. But first of all, thank you very much for the presentation and but I also want to what a little bit but it's just in the direction of saying Tiago. First of all, is why it is important, and second, why is it important for us as researchers, and because we are an academician, like I know that we know that we publish things that are maybe read by very few people, very specialized sometimes, very technical, but this is our job. It's what we are trained to do. And this is a job that we do in a very difficult equilibrium among a very multitask job, which include teaching, which include service, academic administration, academic management. So we are demanded, and it's a little bit in the direction of what Tiago was saying, to be everything in order to be good communicator of our work. So my point is, okay, there are people that are talented for this, but I think it's also legitimate that people just are able, like myself, and maybe even not so able. So the only thing I'm able to do, I think, and even not so well, is to write a paper. I'm able to do this, and I already trained a lot to do this. It was demanding to be able to do this. It's not that we can liquidate this and like, oh, you just publish papers in journal nobody read. It's already something that you trained 10 years to do. You train to teach, you train to lead public projects, you train to manage academic tasks like the courses and administration. And so this is why my question is really wide. So like in natural sciences, like biology, physics, or medicine, there are people that are specialists, professional in science communication. These are why in social science and humanities is considered that hard sciences are more translatable, are more easy to translate it by ourselves. So we don't need this intermediation because there are such a kind of easy issue to deal with that we can easily do ourselves, or when we don't have this kind of pattern, we don't have these figures that could be helpful to us, maybe people that are specialized in communication social sciences, like medicine. Sorry, maybe it's really competitive, but I think saying this, we are really admiring his work because it's something is also produced very demanding. So you're doing a very big task for everybody that, and now it's also very demanding for you to maintain this level in the future with many other tasks.
So I've tried to respond to all of this altogether. There is a lot to discuss, and I think this is already great. We're talking about it. It's the first time in my entire life that I talk about this with other people. I don't know you, but it's not something we really talk about. So on the one hand, it is assumed that we have to do our own marketing. On the other hand, why doing our own marketing? Why shouldn't there be someone specialized? I'm all for it. I don't think I should be doing any of this because I'm paid to do other things. At the same time, the academic outreach we have is part of the evaluation of what we do. But nobody teaches us how to do this. So we are expected to do something, nobody tells us how it should be done. And this is really catastrophic, in my opinion, because the result is that someone who wants to do it, feels the urge to do it, and works in topics that are already media friendly, ends up doing certain academic outreach, is always on TV, and so on and so forth, and others are not, and this can have a negative impact on how we are evaluated. On the other hand, I think we should understand the value of this, because we can do a lot of research. We do a lot of research. We reach conclusions. And this research, we do it because we believe that it helps everybody understand the world we live in better. And if you study social movements and you reach a certain conclusion about when do they succeed or when do they fail, when do they obtain what they want and when they don't, isn't it important for everybody to know this? And how can everybody know this if we don't bring it out of the specialized academic outlets? So I'm not saying it's up to you. Actually, I'm saying the opposite. I'm saying that it shouldn't be up to us. And if it is up to us, it should be recognized as part of our job. So it should be clear that if you devote 15% to administration in your contract, there is also written that you devote 10% to outreach. And if it is written that we have to do it, we should be trained to do it. There should be people coming and teaching us how to do this, how to relate to the media. For example, many times I see in my field, many people interviewed by TV, radio, newspapers. And I know what they research about in the closed ivory tower of academia. And then I see that they go talking to the radio, to the TV, to the newspaper about other things they're not expert to. If we were trained to engage with the media in an appropriate way, this shouldn't happen. We should learn to say, look, there is another colleague who does this very well. Talk to this person instead of just needing the 5 minutes of glory, right? So the other day I got a request from a French journalist who, of course, now is interested in Fratelli d'Italia, the far-right party in Italy. And he asked me because we already work on other things together. And I told him, look, there are two colleagues who work on this. I know, but I know as much as everybody else knows, maybe a bit more, but don't talk to me about this. Go talk to these two colleagues, etc., etc. So we should be trained, and if it is part of our duties, then it should be written somewhere, and we should be knowing better how to do this. I don't know if I'm forgetting anything you mentioned. Probably I am. I got a bit lost. A last thing connected a bit to both. The importance of this. I don't know if you know this magazine in Portugal called 74. When I published an article that you mentioned before about the electorate of Chega and Vox, the populist radical right parties that emerged in Spain and Portugal, I wrote this article, and then the journalist was like, yeah, no, I'm sorry, it's too abstract, this part, we need numbers. Okay, you need numbers. I tried to give you the numbers. The point is that I'm talking about odd ratios. Odd ratios are a statistical concept, difficult for me to understand, incredibly difficult to explain to you as a journalist. And we put there these percentages, like if you are religious, you are 14% more likely to vote for Chega. And then they changed that, and then they didn't understand what does 400% mean? What is 4,500%? And I'm like, yeah, I know. And also, it's not correct 100%, so I'm trying my best. So we're not trained to communicate our findings to the general public. But if I do know who votes for Vox and Chega, and I think it is relevant for everybody to know who composes the electorate of these parties, but I'm not able to tell anybody because there is a technicism about odd ratios that makes it impossible for people to understand. It's pointless what we're doing. I mean, it's not pointless because 25 other scientists will read my paper and cite it and understand it, but will our society change of 0.1%? No, not even that.
So they were insisting on the numbers because you could have just said like religious people are more likely to vote for Chega.
That's what we said initially. And they wanted the numbers to sound more scientific. And we told them, look, it doesn't work like that. And we went back and forth for 2 weeks. So if we were trained to do this and the media were trained about how to deal with academic content, it would be much better.
Sure. Of course, it would. Well,
which I find interesting.
But yeah, there are also methods that issues that they write, and also have a lot strong also social aid. Yeah, it's very time on the top of it's very time demanding, time consuming.
For whom?
For us and for all the platforms. It's the platform like open movement. Now they are closing because they don't have energy.
Absolutely. So the point are two. Either we need this, and if we need this, we have to make it better, to make resources, time, and people making it work, or we don't need this, and then fine.
Do you think to have specialists in this, that intermediary will be part of the result will work?
Yeah, I was thinking of a friend of mine. There was a PhD colleague, and now she actually is kind of doing this, but for a university. I think what she does is she's in New York, and what she actually does, I think, for as far as I understood her job when last I talked to her, was like, you know, I'm part of a communication team that helps researchers to do outreach and to communicate their findings in a more relatable way to the public, which she tells us absolutely a nightmare because sometimes scientists you know it's hard sometimes to do that, but you know, like probably there could be a team as well in universities that can do that work in a way.
For example, Twitter is a way of making outreach, right? I publish something, I tweet about it, and I explain in a thread what are the main results of this thing in a quick, accessible way. And universities are starting to do this as well. There are people, at least in ICS where I work, that, well, one person, who are paid to do this. The point is that this person just fired herself because she was paid with the bolsa, which was not enough money. She was requested to translate the tweets in English and Portuguese, and it was a lot of work. And she said, I'm not going to do all this work for such a meager income. So yes, once again, this costs money to do this properly, and time. And so far, I've seen zero money and a lot of time is gone. And I don't think that my lesson here is, oh, now all of us spend 5 hours a week doing outreach. No, we are already so busy that if we manage to do what we're actually paid for, that's good enough. But at the same time, I don't understand why we're doing all of this and going through all these time-consuming tasks if we don't want people to understand what we're doing.
When like reports, for instance, CIES-Iscte has been doing a lot of reports. Well, the communication guys in the pandemic, they were following the fake news, etc. as well. And after all, they had a lot of traditional public reports and to public policy. And this all is considered outreach.
I would say so. I don't know that this reports.
Because also you know at the beginning what is really outreach. So.
Right, that's also another issue. And indeed, this tweet I put there is because yesterday or 2 days ago, I was tweeting about today's presentation, so which is outreach, and talking about this is also outreach. And I asked other people what is outreach, and here you have a couple of answers. And Kasmude, who's one of the biggest names in the game of populism studies, said something like, oh, don't tell the administrators because they hate when we do outreach and they don't consider that as work. And then someone else said, well, it's talking to the people without assuming that we know better, and so on and so forth. So I think there are several interpretations. A policy recommendation, though, is a recommendation for whom? For politicians.
Institution.
So that's already a narrow form of outreach, but it is outreach. You're coming out of your ivory tower and talking to someone. But it's also specialistic. It's not for the broad public, I think. Yeah. I mean, again, as I said at the beginning, who is your audience, right? It changes a lot.
I was thinking between outreach and impact, because that was a term that you use a lot in the UK.
Yeah.
impact.
Exactly. Yeah.
It's like,
But then citations go into that.
yeah, but that's probably academic impact. But like, what about social impact, right? This is probably what you're talking
As well.
more here. It's like translating and diffusion.
Because the input is not only communication, it's also crystal collaboration with Abita, and collaboration with society.
But these terms are also so
Vague. So
vague and
I'm not talking, my presentation will not about impact, because that opens the door to a whole other dimension. Like, what is the concrete impact of what we do in academia outside of academia? What I'm talking
sometimes you
about,
only feel the impact 10 years later, or 30 years later, or 40 years, or 100 years later, right?
absolutely.
Relativity theory, for instance.
What the impact is one thing. I don't even want to. We can go there, but it's a completely different issue. The academic outreach is, I think, more about making others outside of academia know what you've been researching. Then a next step is impact, and honestly, you mostly have impact if you first had outreach. If Abika does things that nobody knows about, it will not have an impact. It will have an impact as soon as it becomes relevant, and it becomes relevant by doing outreach. So that's a very good point. And next time I could add a second part to this, which is about impact, which is a whole different level.
No, but the impact, yeah, you're right. Like citations of your papers count, but other things as well.
It's academic impact, and then there is social impact.
Yeah.
Like we do, I don't know, research on climate change. And if we show certain facts and policies vary according to these facts, that's a huge impact. But then the impact also depends on, it's out of our hands, let's say. We can say that these are the facts, but what I'm saying is we first need to know how to say these facts out there. First, we need to know how to communicate our findings out there. And I think the climate change example is a good one, because you might have the most rigorous paper on Nature or Science that shows that a 1.5 degrees Celsius increase in temperature in 100 years will bring to this, and that outcome. But if you're not able to make people understand how immediate is the danger, how concrete is the danger of this, then there will be no impact. And to have an impact, you need outreach. And to have outreach, someone has to teach you how to have it.
But they are not the scientists. They are not the
Yeah, sometimes it's social movements doing
but
that.
scientists, but also specialists in science communication.
Yeah.
So yeah, or activists.
Or activists. Like Extinction Rebellion is full of scientists, for instance. I don't know if the protests can be considered outreach, but
So in the ground, do you have some trolls and some people that just appear?
I, over the time, took measures to make this not happen. I had to not approve comments. I try to engage if there is someone provocative who wants to discuss, fine. But as soon as it's trolling, it's always dealt with, which also takes time, and it's annoying. But this, I would say, in the last years did not happen anymore.
any other questions? I think Tiago.
Well, of course, it's very important, this outreach, the translation of the academic jargon to the public. Social utility, and specifically in the field of sociology, you have one sociologist, Michael Moore, that talks about public sociology, and it's not very far from this notion of academic outreach.
True.
Should, and actually promotes the role of social science in terms of informing the public. But although these can also bring questions about objectivity, and how can you really separate, if you can separate between what you're doing or studying and your involvement. On the other hand, I was thinking, because in communication science, there is this concept of mediatization, and basically it's about influence of media logic in other spheres. So, and of course, here the biggest example is politics, mediatization of politics. But if this trend, if it's something that becomes a really huge preoccupation of researchers and academics to the public, I was wondering if you can talk about the mediatization of academic or influence of media logic in academic work. It's not as something that should regard as negative necessarily. On the other hand, it can actually influence. And of course, think about what might be this influence. It doesn't need to be necessarily a substantive influence, although maybe you can think about your conclusions in those terms, in terms of being appealing for a broader public. But its influence can also be felt in the topics you choose, or the kind of objects you will choose for your research. But also because this media logic can have not just influences in individual researchers, but also in agencies and especially private agencies, academic institutions. So I was thinking if this concept of mediatization can also be applied to.
That's a great point. I really like the question also because I've been studying the impact of mediatization on politics, and which is considered by many scholars as one of the causes behind populism. So politics, politicians, parties adapted to the media logic by giving a content that the media like. What is this? Provocative content, aggressive, emotional content, fights, fireworks. This is crazy hair. This is what the media wanted, and this is what the media got, because the politicians, after a while, realized, oh, you know what? We need media attention. How do we get media attention? By doing what the media want. What is that the media want, by the way? What sells. Because either you need to sell a newspaper, or you need to sell copies or whatever you're doing and attract viewers to then attract advertising. So how does this translate? Is academia going to become populist once there is the media logic there? The media logic is already there, in the sense that we already see the impact of the media logic interacting with academia, and we already know this because there are the same three people going on TV talking about all the issues all the time, because they give to the media what the media wants. A reassuring face that says very moderate things, because this is Portugal. This doesn't work in many other countries that are very calm, very clear, and with a certain reputation. And there are no other people. There are always the same people that go and say the same things. Will this affect what is funded, what the grants are, and what people research? It is already doing it to a certain extent.
And titles, you write an abstract.
But then I'm also, and I mean, I've been working on populism, and I think one of the reasons why people started working so massively on populism is because it sells. It sells in terms of getting published, in terms of getting grants, in terms of getting funds. But then I'm also thinking, is it all bad? If we find a compromise between what the media want and what academia needs to produce, and find a balance so that we study not what the media wants, obviously, but that to a certain degree we modify our approach to science based on the fact that it has to be media friendly, there could be some positive aspects. probably overshadowed by the negative ones. And yeah, that's a very good point. That's a very good point.
Sorry.
No, come on.
Yeah, because I'm always a little bit building my question, drawing my question on Tiago. So there is a point that well, sorry, you're here among sociologists, so maybe you're, but you're trained maybe as a sociologist.
I am a media scientist as the training and then a political scientist.
Okay. So you're but so I was thinking that something that I always was thinking during my research, particularly last year that we were working on gentrification. And I was thinking now we are, so as social scientists, we are not just studying reality, we're also creating reality. So we are creating concepts, we are creating trends. And for instance, I was, when I remember when I started the project talks and on gentrification and how did it equal, and gentrification started to be really at the center of the public debate, and also all the thanks to the activists and to the scholars who are working in this, and you have much more scholars on this, and there were certain areas of the city that started to be just the researchers working on gentrification, and they were gentrifying these areas in a certain way. They had an impact on the process. And also another aspect, so it's very interesting because our outreach is not just giving information on a phenomenon, but it's co-building. I have the impression sometimes it's co-building the phenomenon.
No, I think that's the impact.
No, it's
But
not in
maybe
this
not.
sense, not in this sense. It's good. So it's co-building.
Because you keep diffusing meaning to someone that haven't read the reality like that.
Not the
Maybe.
impact in the sense that, well, maybe it's impact in that sense. So it's because you
Maybe it's
focus
both.
outreach is just focusing on the communication of the, but also we are not just studying the phenomenon, we are also building in a certain way the meaning of the phenomenon. So it's not that gentrification exists in
Absolutely.
reality.
But
And
this,
another point, for instance, just to conclude, for instance, in our social movements that we studied the last years, their language is conceptually is like a handbook of sociology, and this is also surprising and a little bit scary for me in a certain way. So, but I don't know exactly which is the question. I just wanted to.
well, sociology studies society, so it's normal to find in society some things of sociology. But I see that set in there. Now, I wanted to say one thing about what you said, because how research modifies reality and how impact and outreach modify reality. One of the interviews of the book, as I mentioned, with Aurélien Mondon, is about the populist hype. And he has made research showing how much, for example, in the UK, The Guardian played a pivotal role in giving visibility to certain aspects of their society that made Brexit possible and populism succeeding and Boris Johnson going into power and the populist radical right being mainstream. And I think this is essential because we can also do all the work we want. I work on populism, but if the media only use my work to convey a certain message that then, as Aurélien Mondon shows, create a populist hype, then this hype created by the media will have impact in real life, in society, will give voters to these parties. And I think it's also something that I've been struggling with when media request an interview with me, or, well, sometimes it's less than that. Can you give me some help? And then they just take what you tell them without quoting you. But the point is that sometimes I'm scared of accepting these things, because I'm like, okay, I study the populist radical right, and they want to know from me about Vox and Shega. But am I not contributing to this white noise about fascism and the far right? And if we only talk about that, it's a self-fulfilling prophecy that then Vox and Shega will be in power in 2 years, in 3 years, in 4 years, and will I have contributed to that by obsessively talking about that? So I'm self-aware and self-conscious about this all the time. And when I know that I can trust the journalist already, it's a different issue. When I know that it will be contextualized, it's a different issue. When I know that I have complete control over the final text, that will appear in the newspaper, I already feel more confident that I will also talk about the fact that talking so much about this has negative effects. Otherwise, I find myself saying, sorry, no, but this will create more hype. This will just reinforce a trend. And it's similar to what you said with gentrification, maybe, I don't know. It goes in
such a way, maybe less directed to channels, the actions that was active communication. So, but yes.
This is a wrap.
Yeah,
That's a wrap, I'd say.
I was just going to say, thinking about Tiago's question, a good example that intersects the three arenas, politics, academia, and communication, was Pablo Iglesias.
Okay.
He was an academic that made his way to politics through communication, right? Through creating his own TV channel, and you seem a bit skeptical.
No. By the way, he said that he will run with Bildu, this party.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh wow!
This party from the Basque
Yeah, yeah,
countries.
yeah.
It was very surprising.
Yeah.
But no, it's very interesting how Podemos was created, by the way, upon the intuitions of Ernesto Laclau, an academic who wrote on populism, and how this discourse he made was used as a theoretical basis for an actual movement, and how then in Italy Five Star Movement pretended that they were the same thing to have credibility. But no, it is interesting. It is true.
I know we can wrap up. I wanted to ask you a question about the book, because after all, it's the book also that we're talking about here, to maybe to finish it if no one else has questions. I mean, you're an expert on populism, right? You've done this for your PhD, you've been doing this for a few years, and you interview people who are experts on populism as well, with more expertise on one subject or another. I was thinking, was there anything while doing the interviews that surprised you, that you learned as well from it?
Yes, that's a very good question. One thing I learned is that what everybody says, that populism cannot be defined, is not true. It's not true. We all completely agree on what populism is, because every single paper on populism starts with, oh, this is a contested topic. This is difficult to define. It's not true. We all agree. We use slightly different words. We all agree it's the people versus the elite. Finish. There are no different interpretations. Another thing I learned is that, in my opinion, we're all aware that you cannot defeat populism. Populism cannot be defeated. It's a wrong question how to defeat populism. Populism is a normal reaction. When democracy doesn't work great, then people are like, oh, those in power are not doing our interest. Now we want someone who doesn't. That's already populism, and there is nothing you can do about it. So instead of criticizing populism because it's doing its job, you should look at yourself in the mirror and say what I can do better for democracy, so that people are less dissatisfied with it. And that's something most people agree with.
Yeah. All right. Do you want that to go on camera? Well, thank you very much. I think you should close the year, because I closed it last year with German, so I think you should close the year.
Okay, thank you. Well, okay, thank you very much, Luca, for this very interesting question. Thank you for people who joined us today, and the people that we will join us in the future, because they can watch the session on our YouTube channel. And so this is the last session of the academic year, and we come back in October. We still don't know. We don't know yet the date, but we will communicate this as soon as possible. And in the meantime, have a very great summer, and thank you very much. We stop here.
Bye.
Bye bye.